We go to chapter 42, which is the final chapter, impact of changing the exchange rates. So when we talk about changing the exchange, that means either increasing or decreasing. Okay, so we'll go down and see what they have for us. Why do exchange rates change? The exchange rate is the price of one currency in terms of another. Like all the prices, they can change. This is because market forces determine prices, and at any time, supply and demand conditions can change. For example, if the UK government raises interest rate, there is likely to be an increase in the demand for pounds as foreign savers take advantage by placing their savings in UK banks. To do this, they have to buy pounds. This increases demand and therefore raises the exchange rate, which was shown earlier. So exchange rate has to change because there's nothing like, are you with me? Are you with me? Okay. So exchange rate has to change because the only thing that is constant in life is changing itself. So not only exchange rate, whatever we have in life has to change. So it doesn't change with respect to the exchange rates too. So for the exchange rate, because it's determined by the demand and supply of, so it means one way or the other, things around it would make it change. Or that's an example they made about an interest rate. So yeah, sure. Why will exchange rate change? Exchange rate has to change because factors surrounding it will change, and life itself will also change. So that means whatever we have, changes will definitely be part of it. It will remain the natural state. So one of the factors that makes the exchange rate to change is the interest rate, which was mentioned there. So as soon as interest rate increases in a country, the demand for that country's currency would increase because foreign savers would want to save in that country. And for them to be able to do that, they have to buy the country's currency. So the demand for the country's currency would rise. So that means the demand for the currency has increased. Changes that occurred. That's the point they are making here. Is it clear? So now we have appreciation and revaluation. When we talk about appreciation and revaluation, we're talking about the flow, we call it the floating exchange rates. The floating, not the fixed. For the fixed, we have depreciation, and for the fixed, we have devaluation and revaluation for the fixed exchange rate. But for the floating exchange rate, which is the black market, we have appreciation and depreciation. So here they are talking about appreciation and revaluation, which is talking about increasing the value of the exchange rate. So they put them together. The floating, which is appreciation, and the fixed, which is revaluation. Both of them means appreciation of the currency. Both of them means an increase in the value of the currency. Okay. So when the nation's currency gets stronger, it is said to appreciate. This means that a unit of one currency can buy more of another currency. So we call it appreciation. If the floating exchange rate increases, if the value of the floating exchange rate increases, that means the local currency can buy more of the foreign currency. The local currency will buy more of the foreign currency. That is appreciation. Clear? So in a minority of countries, the exchange rate is fixed. For example, Bulgaria, Denmark, and Egypt. This means it does not vary. It stays the same all of the time. However, a government might wish to change the exchange so that it reflects current variation. When we're talking about current valuation, we're talking about the situation of the country. So if the government raises the exchange rate so that it is stronger, the currency is said to have been revalued. So revaluation means increasing the value of the country's fixed exchange rate. We call it fixed exchange rate because it remains the same. It doesn't change with whatever decision might be. You get it? So if the country's currency, if the country's government and the central bank, in conjunction with the central bank, concluded to change it, then to increase the value so that it becomes stronger, then we call it revaluation. But if it is about the demand for and the supply of, it is appreciation. If the demand increases, it appreciates. If the government wants to make it stronger, it revalues it. Is it clear? Any question about revaluation and appreciation? Clear. Revaluation is about the fixed. Appreciation is about the floating. We move on. Then we have the depreciation and devaluation. Depreciation means the value of the currency is falling against, the value of the local currency is falling against the foreign currency. That means more of the local currency will buy less of the foreign currency, or less of the foreign currency will buy more of the local currency. That is depreciation. Then when we talk about devaluation, that was what happens with the Libyan dinars. The Libyan dinars was 1.4 to $1 before now. Well, now it is around 4 point something. So that means the government of the Libyan government decided to devalue the currency to 4 points. So devaluation means a fall in the value of a country's currency through the fixed exchange rate. And when there is a fall in the value through the floating exchange rate, we call it depreciation. You understand the difference between depreciation and devaluation here? Depreciation goes with the floating exchange rate. Devaluation goes with the fixed exchange rate, which is determined by the government and the city in conjunction with the central bank of the country. Clear? So we'll go on to impact of exchange rates appreciation. So when the exchange rate appreciates, what is the impact? We check the impact. So impact on exports, that's the first one. So if a UK firm sells goods worth, okay, I have to just explain because UK is mentioned here. So when the foreign exchange rate appreciates, the impact on export is this. As soon as the foreign exchange rate appreciates, it means the local currency will buy more of the foreign currency. Yes or no?
Yeah.
So that means the price of the foreign export, that means foreign export becomes expensive. Did you get it?
Yes.
Because more of foreign currencies are needed to buy less of local currency.
Yeah.
So that means more of foreign currency is needed to buy less of local products, which is represented at export. Do you get it?
Yes.
So the value of export will rise. It becomes expensive. Therefore, countries that are doing exports, that country that has an appreciation in its currency will be less competitive. So exports would reduce. So foreign customers will start seeking for cheaper alternatives than buying from Libya, for example, if the currency appreciates.
Yeah.
Do you get the point here?
Yes.
So that is the impact on exports.
Yeah.
Clear? As soon as the country's currency appreciates, the prices of export increases, the volume of export will fall. And that would also affect the balance of payment. We're not in the balance of payment, we're just talking about export. Clear? Then on imports. As soon as the country's currency appreciates, local currency will buy more of foreign currency. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Great. That means prices of imports become cheaper. So the country will be able to do more of importation. Clear? Then the impact on the current account. Here, this is where we have to talk about both import and export. So as soon as the country's currency appreciates, more exports, less of exports, more of imports. As a result, the country's current account will decline. It will not improve because the country is doing more of imports than exports. Is it clear? We move down. Now, depreciation. Are you sure you're okay, or you want to repeat something? It's clear, right?
Yes.
Now go to the impact of exchange rates when it depreciates. So when it depreciates, it means the value of the country's currency is falling against other countries' currency. Great. So what's the impact on exports? It's a case study. I'm going to just explain so I can understand better.
Yes.
So if the value of the dinars depreciates, what it means is that more of dinars are needed to buy less or few of the foreign currency. That makes our exports value to fall and allows us to be internationally competitive. Because foreign customers will be able to buy with their own currency, will use less of their currency to buy more of our own goods. So that means exports become cheaper for them. And as a result of that, we do more of exportation. We can become internationally competitive. That's exports. Then imports. It means the foreign currency, our local currency will buy less of the foreign currency, which makes the price of imports to be expensive. So we do less of importation. Clear? Then the impact on the current account, which is both export and import, the balance of payments. So as soon as the country's currency depreciates, the country will be able to do more of exports, which will improve the balance of payment current accounts, which will improve it and probably put it into surplus. But what happens to imports? The value of imports will fall And if the country wants to do more of import at that time, it will decline, it will depreciate, it will decline, or it will bring about a negative balance of payments.
Yeah.
If the country wants to do import at that point in time.
Yeah.
And that will decline the balance of
Accounts,
payment
yeah.
current account.
Yeah.
Is it clear?
Yeah.
So that is about depreciation.
Yeah.
Any question about that?
Yeah.
So go to exchange rate and government policy. Are you there?
Yes.
Exchange rates and government policy. We know what government policies are. Government policies are tools government use to, to manipulate, to control, to adjust the economy, like monetary policy, fiscal policy, supply side policy. These are what government will use to adjust or to achieve their macroeconomic objectives. Great. So let's read. Over a period of time, a country must pay its way when trading with others. A government should therefore aim to balance the current account. But what can the government do if, for example, there's a large and persistent current account deficit? One approach is to let the currency depreciate. If the exchange rate falls, the price of export falls, and the price of import rises. Therefore, a deficit on the current account should be reduced because demand for export would rise and demand for import would fall. I'm just going to explain the first paragraph. The government of a country would want a favorable current account balance. Do you understand? An interesting one. But if that doesn't happen, if the current account is in deficit, what can the government of the country do? The government of the country can approach it through this way by letting its currency, its foreign currency, its local currency to depreciate. So depreciating the local currency means the value of the currency falls, right? As soon as that happens, the price of exports become cheaper. So if the price of exports become cheaper, foreign customers will buy more of your products. Yes or no? So buying more of your products means the demand for your country's currency would increase. So that would definitely improve your balance of payments. Do you get it? And at that point in time, the demand for imports would fall. Your citizens would not want to buy imports because the prices are high. So imports would fall, exports would rise, and this would make improvement in your current account balance of payments. That's the first paragraph. How can the government help a currency to depreciate? It can influence the exchange rate by changing interest rates in the economy. So, how will the government now? The plan of the government is to find improvements to improve the current account balance of payments, right? So to improve it, they want to use exchange rates. They know that as soon as their exchange rate depreciates, exports will be done more. Now, how will they be able to do this? They can influence it through changing the interest rate. You get it? So the interest rate is the price of savings and borrowing, yes or no? So when the interest rate reduces, what does that simply mean? It means people would not want to save more. Rather, they want to borrow more. Borrowing more would increase spending. Yes or no? Increasing spending will increase the aggregate demand within the economy. So increasing aggregate demand within the economy would mean that exports output will increase. And if output increases, what does it bring about? It brings about more exports. So let's read anyway. How can the government of a country how can the government help a currency to depreciate? It can influence the exchange rate by changing the interest rates. So based on what is being said, if interest rates are reduced, the exchange rate is likely to fall. For example, if UK interest rates were reduced, the value of the pounds would fall. This is because the supply of pounds increased on foreign exchange markets. As savers withdraw their sterling savings and swap them to another currency. However, there are problems with this policy. So, government wants to reduce the value of the exchange rate. For government to be able to do that, government has to reduce the interest rates. Reducing the interest rate means people would not want to save more, rather they want to borrow. As a result, there will be more supply, more flow of the country's currency in the foreign exchange market, or the supply of the country's currency would increase. That will definitely reduce the value of the currency. So what are the problems with this policy? Which is monetary policy, the government might not have complete control over the interest rate. For example, in the UK, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of England sets interest rate. So one of the problems this policy would bring about is lack of control of governments on the interest rate. So if the government of the country does not have full control of the interest rate, then it is not possible to use interest rate to depreciate the value of the currency. Clear? So reducing interest rates to devalue a currency may conflict with other policies. For example, reducing interest rates when the government is also trying to control inflation is likely to cause more inflation. I have to explain that. Another problem about depreciating the value of the country's currency is that it could conflict with other countries, other government macroeconomic objectives, like inflation. The government of a country would want to maintain a stable price, which means wants inflation to be, to be stable. If that has to happen, reducing the interest rate would definitely increase demand. Because when you increase the interest rate, when you reduce the interest rate, it means the price of borrowing reduces. People will have the incentive to borrow more. As a result of that, the purchasing power of people would increase, households will increase. Increasing their purchasing power means demand for goods and services would increase. That would lead to demand pull inflation. But government wants to solve inflation. But one government policy has bring about a fall in another government's objective. Do you get it? So this could be called government failure. Do you get it? So there's conflict in government objective here. Government wants to try to depreciate the value of the currency. At the same time, it wants to do it using interest rates, depreciating or reducing the value of the interest rate. Reducing the value of the interest rate makes money supply to increase in the economy. Money supply increasing in the economy will bring about increasing purchasing power, which means people will want to spend more. Spending more means increasing aggregate demand. An increase in aggregate demand would bring about inflation, which is another problem. Is it clear? The third one, devaluation will only work if the demand for export and import is responsive to price changes. So when I talk about devaluation, which means reducing the value of the country's currency, it can only work based on price elasticity of demand for exports and imports. So that means, how do we talk about this? There's price elasticity, right? Which is the degree of responsiveness between the quantity demanded for imports and the quantity demanded for exports. Do you get it? So now we check exchange rates, changes, and price elasticity. Are you there? The effectiveness of government exchange rate policy will depend on the price elasticity of demand for imports and exports. For example, if interest rates in the UK are reduced and the value of the pounds fall, a current account balance deficit is only be reduced if the demand for imports and the demand for exports are both elastic. Look at what they say. Okay, so if demand were price inelastic, a fall in the price of export, for example, would have very little effect on demand, and therefore a current balance deficit would not be significantly reduced. So what is the effectiveness of government exchange rate policy on price elasticity of demand for imports and exports? Here we start with, if interest rates are reduced, if the interest rate is reduced, the value of the pound will fall, or the value of the dinar will fall. And that will increase what? It will increase demand for exports. That is if the demand for exports is price elastic. Do you understand? So if demand for export is price elastic, okay, let me read anyway. A current account balance deficit will only be reduced if the demand for import and demand for export are both elastic. So if price reduces, it will only improve the balance of payment current account if the demand for that export is price elastic. It means there's a significant change in the quantity demanded as a result of a change in price. So if a fall in price will bring about an increase in the demand, then it will have an impact in the current account balance of payment. Do you get it or not yet? Okay. Demand for export and import is based on price elasticity of demand. So there's inelastic and there's elastic. It is elastic. Demand is elastic if there's a change in the quantity demanded. There's a significant change in the quantity demanded as a result of a change in price, either an increase in price or a fall in price. So here they said a fall in the price of export will only improve the balance of payments current account if the demand for that good is price elastic. Do you get it? If it is price inelastic, it will not have any significant change. But if the demand for that good, the demand for that export is price elastic, it means a fall in price will definitely bring about a significant change in the quantity demanded for export. Is it clear? Then they said if the demand were price inelastic, a fall in price of exports, for example, would have very little effect on demand, and therefore current account balance deficit would not be significantly reduced. However, if the demand for the good is price inelastic, it means no matter what the price of export is, there's not going to be a significant change in the quantity demanded. So that means there's not going to be improvement in the current account balance of payments. Do you get it? The second paragraph. A country that imports mainly primary goods, such as essential foodstuffs, fuel, and minerals, may find it difficult to reduce demand. This is because demand for such goods is likely to be price inelastic, and higher prices resulting from a depreciation are not likely to reduce demand significantly. A country that wants to boost exports will be more successful if demand for those exports is price elastic. A depreciation in this case might work if exports are non-essential, such as tourism, and consumer durables. So, a country that imports maybe primary goods, which are essential, if for those essential goods, the demands are always price inelastic. No matter what the price is, consumers will still buy. That is the point they are making here. So, if they sell, okay, now depreciating are not like, whatever, if they depreciate the value of the currency, it will not affect such goods because no matter what the price is, it's still inelastic. Do you get the point there? And if a country wants to boost its export, it will be able to do that if the price of its product is price elastic. Because if the price of your product is price elastic and you are depreciating the value of the currency, it means foreign customers will buy more of your products, and that would improve your current account balance. Any question about it? Great. So we have the MCQ. Yeah, they said the first question. If please. If $1 is 1.2 euros, the cost of you to a German business buying $6,700,000 worth of goods would be what? Yes. Yeah, 6.7 multiplied by 6.7 million multiplied by 1.2. That's it. So the answer is D, C, 8,040,000. Question 2. Which of the following will improve the international competitiveness of a country?
Depreciation.
A depreciation in the exchange rate. D. Great, that's the answer. So let's go through each one. Options. The question says, which of the following will improve the international competitiveness of the country? When we talk about international competitiveness, it means you are able to attract more foreign customers.
Yeah.
You are able to attract more foreign
Foreign
customers.
customers.
That is international, you are internationally competitive. An appreciation in the exchange rate. An appreciation in the exchange rate will bring about an increase in the value of the country's currency. That means the country's currency will buy more, or will buy more of foreign currencies, which means prices of exports becomes high. So, and if the price of export is high, it means you cannot be internationally competitive. Foreign customers will start seeking for alternative. It is not in. B, a fall in interest rates. A fall in interest rates will bring about an increase. A fall in interest rate will bring about an increase in aggregate demand, which means purchasing power will increase. As a result of that, well, when you look at a fall in exchange rates, because it's interest rates, at the end of it all, a fall in interest rate will bring about a fall in the country's foreign exchange rates. So a fall in interest rates, bringing about a fall in foreign exchange rates, will definitely reduce the prices of exports. Do you understand? But because this is not just talking about that, a fall in interest rates here would only increase borrowing. Do you understand? But when you look at it further, it will also bring about international competitiveness. But the first thing that happens when there is a fall in interest rates is that borrowing will increase and demand will increase. So it is not B. Clear? C, high rates of inflation in that country. A high rate of inflation will bring about high domestic inflation. And when there is domestic inflation, it will reflect in the price of exports. It means the price of export will also rise. It will not increase or improve the international competitiveness of the country. Get the point here. A higher rate of inflation in that country means domestic inflation is high. So if there is increase in domestic inflation, it will mean that whatever you have to sell to foreign customers will have an increased price. So it will not allow you to be internationally competitive. Price of export are increasing, so it will not. It's not C. A depreciation in the exchange rate. A depreciation in the exchange rate is directly linked to exports, because a depreciation in the exchange rate means the value of our country's currency fell against foreign currencies. So that would mean that exports would decrease than imports. And logically, it brings about increasing internationally or improving international competitiveness of the country. So the answer is D. Any question about that? So that ends chapter 42 and the end of the book. Thank you. So you have to do the exam practice now for that chapter. I think you have time to do that. Yes. No.